Do you ever know that there is an unrealizable, undisclosed market of terrorism in Indonesia? If you're coming from Africa or you're coming from other parts outside Africa, you're going to be surprised that something that disturbs Africa as a continent is equally happening in Indonesia. That is terrorism. Where do we start? How do we start? As you follow me, you are going to be taken into the discussions, deeper discussions that center around these horrifying, gory topics. As you all know that the contemporary Islamic consciousness, that is where I'm going to start. The contemporary Islamic consciousness, as beautiful as the name and the frame sound, is surrounded by challenges. What are those challenges? Welcome to the book review from the Triple I Library Podcast. I am Kamordeen Taoheed Demola from the Faculty of the Social Sciences. I'm going to introduce you into the roots of terrorism in Indonesia, from Jama'at Islamiyah to another equally, I would say, equally satanic sister in crime to that Jama'at Islamiyah. You're welcome. This discussion is going to be centered around 5 important points as identified by the author of the book I'm reviewing. 1, there is an attempt to totalize Islam in Indonesia. 2, some people are saying that the constitutional contours of Indonesia should be Shariaized. They also say that anybody that doesn't believe in what they are chanting, what they are promoting, is not a Muslim, even if the person observes Salah right close to Kaaba. They say that except there is Sharia in Indonesia, Indonesia is not going to witness peace. These and other intriguing aspects of what you and I deserve to know are going to be presented. Just follow me. Here with me is an important book titled The Roots of Terrorism in Indonesia, From Darul Islam to Jama'at Islamiyah. Who is the author? It is that wonderful writer, a seasoned researcher and journalist with journalistic experience spanning across a couple of decades. In 2011, this particular author, this particular journalist, was the principal researcher with the Lowy Institute crew for the research work conducted on what? On Talib or Taliban, Indonesian students in Pakistan and Yemen. You are going to be interested to know what actually, is kept in this book. The researcher is no other person other than Salahuddin, who doubles as an expert with the Indonesia Strategic Policy Institute, charged with the national responsibility of developing a database of extremist violence in Indonesia. What a wonderful writer. His other important interest spurs into working as an activist, fronting for the interest of the press. You and I know that in several political climes in the world, the press, or let me say, the journalists are usually not given what they deserve in the place of how things are ordered. He undertakes an altruistic study of political and religious movements in Papua. What is special about Papua? Don't forget, in Papua, in 2001, 2 foreign journalists of Belgian origin were taken as hostage. This particular writer, whose book I'm reviewing, was instrumental to facilitating the release of these Belgian journalists. And other interesting things about the book are going to be relayed to you as you follow me. The book that I'm reviewing centrally conducts discursive arguments, convincing arguments around the claims of a number of organizations in Indonesia which claim ideological affiliations to Islam and its ideological roots, that see a totalizing Islam as a true representation of the country's religious contours. What do they also say? Specifically, groups like Darul Islam, founded by Sakarmaji Merijan Kartosuwirjo in the 40s, Jamaah Islamiyah, founded by Abdullah Sunkar in 1992 with an affiliation to Demola Islamic Liberation Front, MILF. Abu Sayyaf group in the Philippines are copiously mentioned in this book. What is interesting about these groups? The author equally believes that the evolution of jihadism in Indonesia has a connection with Iranian Revolution of 1979. These are the fundamental fulcrums within which the book revolves. But there are other key points that are going to be interesting to you about reading about this book. What are those other key points? There is an absolute Sharia state of Indonesia. These people claim for, they call for that. They say if there's not a Sharia state, Indonesia will not be Indonesia. What a funny assertion. They also say that understanding of a Muslim is going to be built on who supports the Sharia. Meaning that if you are a Muslim to them and in their shallow thinking, you're not supporting the Sharia, will mean you're not a Muslim. Who says this? Does the Quran say this? Does the Sunnah say this? You're going to know much better. Then these groups also indict a number of Muslim scholars whose writings are largely misinterpreted and misunderstood by the groups in question. And there's this unwarranted landscape bombing. People who are outside Indonesia may be shocked by the revelations that this book is providing, because we never used to know that things like this were happening in Indonesia. In Indonesia, we have often ascribed bombings and all those things that go with bombings to Afghanistan and some parts in the Western Asia. But that these things happen in Indonesia took us aback. What do this group say they want? Let's begin to expand further each of the 5 points we have identified. When they say they look for a totalizing Islam, what do they mean by totalizing Islam? They want an Islam in a society where no other religious faithfuls are going to be found. And that is not a practical thing. Even at the level of the Prophet who was sent to us, a totalizing Islam didn't take place in Medina. The Prophet of Islam, whose teachings this group say they are marketing, lived in a place where we had the Jews, we had the Mushriks, the Medina, and at no time was the Prophet hell-bent on making sure that the Jews left Judaism, the Mushriks left their paganistic ways of life and come into Islam. He never preached that. And that means if anybody tries to put that into the teachings of Islam, that person will fail. And that is why these groups have failed woefully in Indonesia. Secondly, they say that everything should be Shariaized. Truly, the Sharia is an undetachable part of Islam. But how and where do we exercise the Sharia? In a multi-religious setting, in a multi-ethnic setting like Indonesia, you don't call for a totalizing Sharia, because it isn't everyone that believes in what you believe in. It isn't everyone that is convinced of Islam. If you say it should be Sharia, it should be Sharia. Don't forget, you are not representing Islam in that assertion. A very good example, in Medina, when the Prophet, in whom you and I repose belief and confidence, got to Medina, he entered into MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, with the Jews, with the Mushrikun. Why did he do that? He wanted a cosmopolitan society where different religions and their faithfuls will be living side by side. If our Prophet had succeeded in doing that, if anybody says he's going to do what is against what the Prophet did and succeeded in, that person will fail. These groups fail in Indonesia. So all these facts are embedded in this book, Kamordeen. They say that if you do not support the Sharia state as they are claiming, rather, you are going to be an apostate. What defines apostasy in Islam? This will lead me to the fourth point identified by this book, and which forms the fulcrum of what these groups are claiming, and that is they misinterpret the writings of a number of scholars of Islam. They will say, you are not a Muslim any longer, insofar you don't support them. And they will say, you're not being a Muslim is being ascribed to one saying or statement of, say, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim. These scholars have never written nor said what they are preaching. But to the outside world, who see these groups and what they do, they will think that it is Ibn Taymiyyah, all other scholars of Islam, whose writings form the basis of the Islamic understanding, are the ones teaching them what they are preaching. And this leads to a misinformation of Islam, a misrepresentation of Islam. And on that note, I will say that these people don't deserve our attention. Why don't they deserve our attention? It is because before you can say a particular scholar who says he or she fronts for Islam, before that scholar is going to be believed, you must understand the background within which he has grown up, his claim to knowledge. What are the writings he relies on? If you know the writings, if you know his backgrounds, and you know the claims that he thinks he can push forward, you can know whether you are going to believe in him or her or not. And this is my caveat. The founder of this Jama'ah, this Darul Islam that later metamorphosed into Jama'ah al-Islamiyah, has a history that every Indonesian knows. The founder's exposure to the actual teachings and basis of the religion he claims to front for matters a lot. A question here, a humble one. What does, because we are going to put it in a continual form, what does Karmaji know about Islam, about jihad in Islam? When did the Prophet himself prosecute jihad? Against whom did he prosecute the jihad? So it means there is a missing link between what he claims to market in the name of Islam and what Islam actually teaches in that regard. So before you can believe any scholar, especially when it comes to engaging with a secular state, a non-Shariatic state, over political claim, before you can believe in such a scholar, you must have understood. You must have taken your time to read, to conduct a research about his exposure. Does he have an all-round exposure? 2, the psychological and epistemological makeup of any scholar is very, very important. What do I mean by epistemological makeup? How does the scholar crave knowledge? How does he make knowledge into something that is going to be acceptable? You deserve to know that. Anybody who says in these contemporary times that if you are not a Muslim, you deserve to die, says who? Because in Medina, those who were never Muslim didn't deserve to die. They lived with the Prophet till the tail end of his lifetime. Nobody was banished in Medina except on political grounds. So my caveat here, for people who may not know why some people, some groups claim what they claim, like the claims here, is that don't overgeneralize the blames of these people whose stories are told here. Don't overgeneralize their claims, and don't say whatever they say or whatever is being criticized as what they do is what Islam teaches. This is very, very important, because if we do not expose the failings of these people, we are going to end up misrepresenting Islam. And misrepresenting Islam will mean that we are going to be held accountable for the fact that we have the wherewithal to reposition understanding of Islam, but we fail to do so. This is my humble caveat, my humble advice, my humble opinion with respect to the journalistic and research work that Salahuddin conducted in this research. If you need more information with respect to this book, you can come to the library of the III. Thank you for listening to me.